What's up everybody? It's Hank from Spruce and Brews, and today we're going to be talking about these little guys. These are 4 of the 5 figures that come with Tamiya's 135 scale German Infantry set mid-World War II. It's kit number 35371. They're super well detailed, super easy to put together, a blast to paint and weather up. Comes with a decal set. Overall, highly recommend picking this up. So specifically today, we're gonna be looking at this guy on the end here. This is the NCO from the set, and I'm gonna use him as an example for how to paint and weather up these little figures. All right, with that said, grab yourself a beverage, get cozy, let's check it out. All right guys, so here's our figure all assembled. It's a pretty basic assembly process. You can just cement this guy together with regular Tamiya extra thin cement. But the first thing we're going to want to do here is add a strap to his little MP40 there for a little extra detail. For this, we're going to use some Tamiya masking tape. You can really use any masking tape you have around. Cut off those serrated edges and then cut a nice fine strip right along the bottom of your tape. You can trim this down to size as necessary depending on how long you want your strap to be, how long you want it to hang down next to the MP40 or whatever weapon your soldier's carrying. And super simple here, just use a reference photo to make sure that you have the attachment points for the strap correct on your particular weapon, and just use the adhesive on the tape to attach this to both sides of the weapon, and just like that, you've got an awesome little strap. To prepare my figures for painting, I use this little DIY mounting base. It's just a drywall screw and a little piece of wood, and we're just gonna super glue one of his feet to that drywall screw, and it's gonna give us something to hold on to when we're painting. Whoop, sorry dude. While we're working, just so we don't mess up our paint job. Just hold him there for a second while the glue does its thing. And the nice thing about the super glue bond is that it's strong enough that he's not gonna get knocked off while you're painting, but it's a weak enough bond that you can just pop him off with your fingers when the painting process is done. Here I've primed the figure with some Vallejo black primer to give us a nice base to work with, and this guy right here is another figure from this Tamiya set. I'm gonna use him as reference to make sure that the paint colors match, because I'm probably gonna display these guys together at the end of the day, and I want them to look uniform. I like to start painting my figures with the face, so I'm going to grab some Vallejo dark flesh, and I'm just going to block in the basic skin tone for his head here. You're going to be able to see some of the black through this, but the name of the game here is going to be a bunch of fine layers. We're going to build up and get that nice rich flesh tone, so don't worry if you can see through a little bit in the beginning. Next, I'm going to switch to some Dunkelgrau while that face dries. We're going to use this for his pants, so same process here, just going to block those in. Again, okay, if you can see the base coat a little bit, we'll do a couple layers here. For his jacket, we're going to use some field gray and block that in. There's a lot of details here with his straps and packs and everything. Don't worry if you overpaint on those a little bit. We're going to come in and do all of our detail work later. We just want to make sure we get a solid coat down to represent that jacket in the nice stark field gray. By now, that first coat of face paint is done, so I'm going to come back and do another layer using that same dark flesh tone. Next, we're going to switch to some light flesh, and we're going to very carefully paint in the eyes. Sorry for the quality here, it was kind of tough to paint this zoomed in, but we're just going to try and fill in those eye sockets. You're going to go over a little bit and get it on his cheeks and his eyebrows and stuff. That's okay, we're going to come and cut those lines in later, but we just want to get a nice solid white base there. I am using brown for his eyes here, but you can really use any eye color you want. And you're just gonna super carefully draw in 2 vertical lines for the eyes and make sure they line up. You don't want them cross-eyed and looking in 2 different directions. After all that, I'm gonna come back in with our dark flesh again, and I'm just gonna refine that eye shape. To give a little depth and richness to his skin tone, we're gonna grab some flat flesh now, and we're gonna highlight the raised areas of his face, his jawbone, cheekbones, ears, nose, forehead, etc. We're working with really fine layers here, so you just kind of want to build this up and blend it together. I'm no figure painting expert, so you just want to work with it until it starts to look kind of realistic. Next, I'm grabbing some basic skin tone. This is even lighter than the last color we used, and I'm going to go over, again, those highest areas with a nice thin coat, create a little more richness and depth. This makes the skin look a little less orange and like a Lego almost, and actually like a human being. He's got some, pale skin to him now. Starting to look pretty good here. We just need to give him some eyebrows. For the brows, we're going to use the same brown that we used for his eyes earlier. Much better. Now he's actually got some expression to him. Now we're going to move on to the hair. We're using that same brown. Again, we want to match our hair tones. And we're going to kind of draw in the shape of the hair that's peeking out from under his cap here. Tamiya has a bit of a hair mold on the head here, but you have to use some artistic license and kind of follow along with where the hair should be. And make sure you create kind of a feathered edge at the bottom of the hair. We don't want this to look super blocky. I then grab a second color, a lighter brown here in this instance, and I'm going to go right over the same shape I did before. This creates some depth and some realism to the hair. With the hair complete, we're going to move on to his field cap. We're going to block this whole thing in using the same field gray we used for his jacket. To help clarify the line between his cap and his hair, I'm going to use this Luftwaffe camo green, and I'm going to pencil in a super fine line right at the base of his cap. We're also going to use this same color for the collar of his jacket. Moving down to his packs and gear, we're going to use this Ammo MIG flat black for figures, and we're going to paint in his Y-strap. These are the big suspenders that he's wearing around his shoulders. For the rest of the webbing that he's using to keep his gear on his body, we're going to use this green-gray, and we're just going to paint in these straps. If you go over and get some of this on his jacket, that's okay. You can come back with the field gray and clean up your mistakes later. We're going to use this next tan earth color for a couple of things. We're going to start out by painting the ammo pouch that he has on his right hip here. This would be where he would store his extra clips for the MP40. We're also going to use this tan color for the bread bag, the big storage bag that's on the back of his hip. I like to use this chocolate brown color for the bottom of his canteen. I think it's a really nice contrast when it's sitting on top of that tan bread bag. Switching back to our trusty field gray, we're going to use this to paint in his mess kit, his ration kit, and we're also going to use this to paint in the top of his canteen. In real life, this would also be field gray, but for his gas mask container, I like to paint this in with a white aluminum. When we weather this, it's going to look a lot dirtier and not so stark, but I like to have that dinged up metal effect. So we're going to paint this in with white aluminum. I had to paint these off camera because the detail work was so fine, but using flat black, I've painted in the straps on both his mess kit and his canteen. We're going to put down our first coat on his hands using the same dark flesh that we started with on the face, and really simple, just going to block these in. For the masking tape strap that we made for his MP40, we're going to use some red leather. Off camera, I've added some light flesh to his hands to finish those up, and now I'm coming back with some flat black to just clean up the lines on our binoculars and on our MP40, anywhere where I overpainted with the skin tones. This part really helps pop all those details. We're going to grab some white aluminum, and we're just going to very gently color in any of the metal areas, buttons, straps, buckles on his uniform, and this is really just going to help those super fine details, this awesome Tamiya molding, pop. You can see how much of a difference that makes on the buttons here. This next step I love. We're going to do a bit of dry brushing on the binoculars, some of his gear, the MP40. Just get most of the white aluminum off of your brush and just gently graze this over these areas. It's going to really accentuate all those beautiful molding details that Tamiya put into this sculpt. That is going to wrap up our painting process, so I'm going to take the figure downstairs and I'm going to spray him with a coat of AK Interactive Gauzy agent to protect him for the decals and the later weathering process. We're going to use the decals that came with the Tamiya kit. They've worked pretty well for the last few figures I've painted. And using a little bit of micro sol, we're going to prepare the area and then gently slip the decals into place. I'm really glad Tamiya included the decals in this kit. It's an awesome finishing touch and adds an extra level of realism to these figures. With all the decals applied, I come back and put on a coat of micro sol to make sure that they settle nicely. Here we are looking great with all of our decals applied. We're going to let all those dry, and then we're going to spray them with another gloss coat to prep for the weathering process. We're going to do a really simple dark wash here. Just cover all the areas of the sculpt with the enamel wash. It's going to sink into all those nooks and crannies, and we're going to let it dry a little bit and then come back with some of our enamel thinner and a fine brush and remove any excess that we don't want. We want to try and remove some excess wash from any of the raised parts of the figure. We want to get it off his cheekbones, his forehead, any of the highest parts of his uniform, and the backs of his hands. And we want to try and leave some of the dark wash in our crevices. So in between his fingers, in the mouth, in the eye sockets a little bit, in his ears. This is really going to help create that artificial shadow effect. Just keep working with it with the enamel thinner until you're happy with the result. If you need to go back and add a little wash, you can, but it's malleable. Just play with it until you get a result that you're happy with. Once you're happy with the weathering result, you're going to let that whole thing dry completely, let all the enamel wash dry, and then we're going to clear coat the figure with a matte varnish to protect all of our work. And here he is, all finished. I highly recommend picking up this kit. It's a super awesome sculpt from Tamiya. It's probably the finest quality you're going to get outside of a resin figure. Tons of little details to look at, and this guy would look great next to any armored vehicle in any little diorama you want to do. Super happy with how he came out. All that's left for us to do is to remove him from the base. Just gonna gently pop him off there, break that super glue bond, and then just shave off any of the extra glue that's on the bottom of that mounting foot. And here is our Wehrmacht NCO, ready to rock and roll. Like I said before, guys, I highly recommend this kit from Tamiya. It's less than 20 bucks and you get 5 awesome figures, super high quality with these great details. The possibilities for them are really endless. You could use these for a ton of different things. But that's going to be it for me today, guys. So thank you for watching. I really appreciate the support. Please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button below. And until next time, be well, happy building. Cheers.